Hello and welcome to The Long Couch. My name's Carl. I'm joined tonight by Mel.
Hi.
Uh, tonight, perhaps,
On this fine evening.
this fine evening, we will be discussing some of the most sinful fictional characters in all of, fiction.
I'm very
So,
excited.
Mel, I assume you're familiar with the Seven Deadly Sins.
Yeah. I've seen the anime.
So I don't think I have to spend too much time on this. I think everyone's familiar with the seven deadly sins. We've got pride, we've got greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, and sloth. And as we get to these categories, we'll dive into them a little more. But I have to assume that most people know what they are
Yeah,
and kind of what they entail.
a bit of a preliminary questionnaire. What do you think you are? What's your sin of the seven deadly ones? What will be your
Let me
demise?
see. My demise
Yeah,
would
well, they're
be
deadly.
the one that's most likely to kill me is gluttony.
Well, but yeah,
That will
but
be my
like,
demise.
which what do you think you fit most into gluttony?
I think I would say so. That's as a overweight guy who struggled with weight. That's the one that's going to kill me the most, and that's the one that is in my life the most, I feel.
That's fair. I'm sloth all the way, baby.
Your laziness is like going to be the downfall of you.
Oh yeah, 100%. I can see it happening.
Fair enough. Okay, well, now that we've identified that, I'll just lay out a couple of disclaimers here. So we had to narrow it down to 3 characters per sin. We're in no way saying that these are the 3 most sinful characters, despite the title. And we can only speak about characters that I or Mel are familiar with. So we're going to be obviously missing your favorite prideful character or
Yeah,
what have
listen,
you.
when the character that is the embodiment of pride from your 1997 JRPG that had a limited release of 10 copies, like, I'm sorry, we're not going to get to it. We're not going
I
to.
mean, there are even super popular characters that embody these sins that I just haven't seen. I can't speak on them, and neither can Mel. So we're not going to cover everybody. But I think we got some really good, varied contenders here. So let's get into the first sin,
Hell yeah.
which is lust. So lust is what? Overwhelming sexual desire.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
maybe not always sexual,
well, yeah,
but
you
most
can
often.
lust after other things. But I
Right.
do think that when most people hear the word lust, they're going to think, like, yeah, like sex.
I think so, yeah. And first of all, we have Jessica Rabbit here from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. She is Roger's wife. She's obviously a very lusty character in both her design and her character.
Yeah, here's the thing. I haven't seen this movie, right? I'm very familiar with it, but I haven't completely seen it. I do know that she is the rabbit's wife. I do know she fucks the rabbit. So,
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
okay, well, she's married to the rabbit. They're deeply in love with each other.
Right.
So, but her character, pop culturally, is kind of this symbol of promiscuity.
Yes.
So, is she unfaithful to the rabbit? Is that like her?
Yeah.
She
That's a plot
is.
point in the movie, yes.
Wow.
She's caught doing patty cake with Mr. Acme. So that's why I say that there may not be actual sex in the cartoon world, because
Oh,
when she
okay.
has an affair, she's placed patty cake with somebody. You know,
Oh,
despite her looks
that
and how
wasn't
she
like
might be,
a metaphor.
that
Like,
was not an innuendo. That is literally a plot point in the movie. Yeah, and her famous quote is, "I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way." So I
oh,
think
I
she's kind
have
of
heard that.
misunderstood. Yeah,
Okay, well,
she's kind
that's
of misunderstood.
I mean, that's deep. That goes into it because I mean, in the world of Roger Rabbit, I mean, is she kind of implying that cartoons, although sentient, do not have, um, I guess, free will? Like she's drawn that way, predetermined behavior. She's not in control
Well,
of
I
that.
mean, you can't control the nature of your own appearance at birth, right?
Yeah, but was she born?
Oh, she's created, I have to assume.
Yeah, so isn't that weird to like I'm just gonna have to watch it. I'm gonna have to watch the movie. I don't
It's more like, despite me looking the way I do, I feel I'm misinterpreted by people because I'm so overwhelmingly sexy.
Yeah, no, I get that part. It's just I think that there's greater implications that this is a character in a movie that has sentience,
Right.
that has autonomy, but is also the product of somebody's creation. Like she was, or maybe she's just kind of being kind of tongue in cheek, like, oh, I was drawn that way. But like, where does I? Never mind. Never mind. Don't worry about it. I gotta watch the movie. I'm obviously missing a key point here.
Very much so. So she's clearly like an amalgamation of like the femme fatale, because this movie is like a kind of a parody or a tribute to crime noir. So she's kind
Yeah,
of like that seductive, mysterious woman who you kind of suspect is the killer. Or so, and this movie is all about who framed Roger Rabbit, and of course all eyes are on his wife.
yeah. Okay, so it's like
So
a
she's a
murder
pivotal,
mystery.
and I feel she does not fall into a villainous, lusty role. She is, spoiler alert, but she's not the killer, and
I
she
didn't
is.
think she was
While she is unfaithful to Roger, she does protect him
to
and,
the
and
rabbit.
have his best interest in mind. So while she is very lustful, I don't think she uses her lust for evil in many cases.
I mean,
And
is that's fair? That's fair.
we have to consider how, because I've picked evil characters or villains, and I've also picked heroes or protagonists that suffer from certain sins. So
Okay,
we're
the
gonna kind of analyze that
suffer.
as well.
Can't wait.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
So the next character is definitely he falls differently from Jessica.
Okay,
This is Glenn Quagmire
Glenn
from Family
Quagmire.
Guy, the giggity man
Yeah,
himself.
yeah.
Obviously, the man is incredibly horny to his own detriment, and then, he ruins relationships all around him constantly with his horniness and has committed many, many sex crimes. So, like, pretty clearly a villain. He's had some shots at redemption, and he's had some sympathetic moments
I
throughout the show.
Quagmire's a bit of because I don't know because like Seth MacFarlane, I've watched interviews with him and stuff, and like every single like all of his characters are very much like these exaggerated caricatures of like real kinds of people. Like it's interesting because Quagmire has got like this like weird like transatlantic like 1920s accent.
Right.
Um and it's just but it's also he's just so like he's obviously not a good guy, right?
No.
Like I've seen Family Guy. Like I know what the things that Quagmire has done and will continue to do. But it's so comical that it's just like I mean, who's out there like you shouldn't enjoy Quagmire. Like he's problematic.
Of
Like
course,
yeah,
but
he's supposed to be.
it's humorous because it's such an exaggeration. It's the horny friend trope pushed up to 11, and to the point where he's like a devious criminal.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that out of any lustful character, it's going to be hard to beat this.
All right, well, let's look at our next contestant. This is Denji
I
from
have
Chainsaw Man.
I actually have a little bit to say about this.
So I put Denji here specifically because, unlike many other characters, his lust actually drives him, towards his goals. That is his driving force behind him and what makes him do heroic things. Mel, would you like to dig into that?
Yeah, so this is a really interesting one because I think that it's pretty easy to write off his character and his sort of like motives as just incredibly lustful, but also at the same time, it's like when you look at his background, right? Grew up dirt poor and abused by the mafia, essentially. Has never had compassionate human interaction in his entire life. The only friend he had was a demon that was absorbed into him. He's had a pretty rough go of things, and so
Absolutely.
his desire to, he initially kills like the bat demon devil or whatever and stuff like that to touch a boob, right?
Right.
In my mind, like, I can feasibly understand that a teenage boy who's had nothing his entire life, I can see that being a motivator, because
Absolutely.
he craves connection, you know. So
The
I
big
don't
difference is
blame him. I get it.
most anime characters have a big noble goal. Or they're like, I need to avenge my family who fell.
Yeah.
Or I need to prove myself or save the world or be the greatest this or that. But Denji is a simple kid.
Yeah, it's
He
subversive
just
for
wants a
sure.
simple, comfortable life, and he just wants to touch boobs. Like, literally, there is a plot point early in Chainsaw Man where he is offered boob squeezes if he will, kill a demon. And later on, he's even egged on by other female characters to do the impossible, a heroic action that will save millions of people's lives
kill a gun
in
devil.
exchange for, kill the gun devil in exchange for what, a night out with his romantic interest.
With his boss, by the way.
And he literally, his mantra is like, I just want to touch some boobs.
But also,
So,
it's like, as expected of a teenage boy, when he gets what he wants with Power the first time, when Power's like, all right, I know I tried to kill you, but you did save me. I did promise a boob squeeze. It's like he does it, and he's like, oh, that was kind of like
he realizes it was a shallow endeavor.
underwhelming.
Yes, and what he really craves is love and
Connection.
affection.
Exactly.
Yes. But why Denji is here because he uses his lustful drive for good.
Yes, I would agree.
That
He's
makes
very
him special.
motivated. He saved
Okay.
saved hundreds.
Absolutely. So I should mention here that a lot of these characters we're picking they have multiple sins.
Oh wow.
Many of these are going to fall under multiple categories, but
Faceted sins.
I've put them in their respective category for the sin I felt was most prevalent.
That's fair. I respect it.
So next up, I'm going to show you the next picture. I'm going to have you just take a wild guess what the next sin is.
Okay.
This is Augustus Gloop.
Yeah, it's definitely gluttony, I would say.
It is definitely gluttony.
Dude, it's crazy.
He is,
Go ahead. Do your introduction.
when you think gluttony, Augustus Gloop definitely comes to mind. He's the chocolate river kid from Willy Wonka. He cannot stop eating, and look at him back in the 1960s or 70s movie. That was like a fat kid back then, and now he's like average.
It's interesting because the Augustus Gloop from the original Willy Wonka movie with Gene Wilder, it's like he's so much more put together and somewhat normal. Like when you watch the one with Johnny Depp, it's like that kid's like inhuman. Like that's just
he's like disgustingly, exaggeratedly fat and like gluttonous.
way worse
And then
haircut
this-
too.
Right, this kid's like a little stocky, and he's a hungry boy. He's a growing boy for sure.
I think that Augustus Gloop is an interesting example that you've brought up here, because I think that his gluttony, his sinful, dubious gluttony, is not necessarily his fault. You got to remember, he's a child.
Right,
This
he
is
doesn't maybe
neglect. His parents have let him reach this state. Like
they do encourage him.
Yes, exactly. I mean, listen, if my kid is cupping chocolate from a river of chocolate by just taking spoonfuls and shoving it down his gullet, I'm saying, hey, my child, let's dial it back a bit. Let's maybe not do that. Let's maybe ask the nice man if the chocolate river is sanitized.
Right.
Let's not put liquid chocolate down the mouth.
So Augustus is a victim here.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, there are certain things that children just aren't simply capable of processing on the same level as adults, right? And it is up to the parents to guide these children in the right direction, to guide them away from the chocolate river and say, hey, maybe let's just do a chocolate bar. Just
Right.
one a day. You know?
So Augustus is not developed enough to understand the consequence of his gluttony.
Exactly. And it is so much harder, so much significantly harder to correct a behavior than to prevent it from ever happening in the first place. He will always be like this.
That is, yeah, very true. And you have to consider what Roald Dahl, the author, implied when putting this character in, because basically he's the fat boy. He comes in, he immediately gets eliminated from the Wonka game because of
He's
his
first
gluttony.
out, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like Roald Dahl was obviously now the other kids are all sinful in their different ways.
Yeah.
So, but Augustus, he's out immediately because he's the fat
What's
boy.
Charlie's sin?
Roald Dahl was clearly saying something. What is Charlie's sin? I don't know. He's the perfect. He's like the good kid, right?
Yeah.
Right. So he's the perfect shining example for all the other sinful kids. But Roald Dahl must have had something to say about gluttony and this fat boy getting taken out of the game.
Keep saying
You
fat
know.
boy, man. You keep phrasing it like that.
He's a fat boy. What do you want me to say? That's his character.
I know.
He's
I
not
know.
a real
you
child.
Just kept saying fat boy, and it just I couldn't take. I was trying to remain composed, and eventually the dam had broke. And
Okay. All right. Let's move on.
okay.
Next up, we've got Bender Bending Rodriguez. He is gluttonous in a different way, but also in a similar way. But this robot from Futurama, to
Yeah.
be clear, loves drugs and alcohol and sex and strippers and watching too much TV and gambling and doing everything in excess.
Very indulgent.
Absolutely. And there's even a specific episode, which I pulled this second image from,
I see that.
where they do a what if machine and they say, what if Bender became a human? And he ends up overindulging on every carnal pleasure until he becomes an obese sack of shit, unable to move, and he eventually dies of heart failure in like a week because he just eats and drinks and fucks to his absolute limit.
Yeah.
He cannot control himself.
Here's my thing about Bender bending Rodriguez here. Is I this what if sort of situation definitely portrays him in a much more consequential light. But he's a robot, you know what I mean? So, but hypothetically, if somebody approached you and said, "Hey, Carl, what if I could provide you a life in which you could indulge into the pleasures of life, essentially consequence-free?" I mean, I would at least be eating a little bit more than I normally do, right?
Right.
You know, I wouldn't be so worried about maybe the ill effects of like substance usage. Like, I quit vaping like a month or two ago. I wouldn't have to quit vaping, because it
Right.
wouldn't have any long. So given Bender's an asshole, he's apart from indulging, he's just kind of mean too. But
He's a meanie, yeah.
But I get it. I kind of get it.
See, but that kind of consequence-free indulgence would become its own hell eventually.
Okay.
Because if I could eat and drink and smoke all I wanted and never suffer the consequence, there's a reason my tummy hurts after a while and I have to stop. And that's what makes it pleasurable, is that you can't just have it all the time.
Okay, so like the scarcity of it is really what makes it so nice.
I would think so, yeah. I would think if I was able to do everything consequence-free, then eventually I would become so sick of it, my life would be robbed of the pleasure of doing any of those things.
I think that's fair. I mean, to use the same analogy, I mean, when you fucking rip a vape for the first time at the age of like 15, or 16 years old like I did, you get you get that head rush. It's like cinnamon flavored, whatever, and you know you get that nice head rush. You're like, oh my god, this is a whole new way to live. But then you rip a vape at the age of 22, and it's like I don't feel anything. I'm just doing this to
You don't
continue.
want it
Yeah,
anymore.
I
You just need it.
doing it to continue to feel normal, to sort of like keep the ill effects at bay. So I get it. The overindulgence kind of detracts a little bit from the fun of it, I would say.
Everything in moderation.
I agree. It's very
Someone else who could learn from this is the main man, the king of gluttony himself, Homer Simpson.
I don't watch a lot of
Who is
Simpsons. Does he really
This
just
is
like
a-
eat donuts a lot?
He just eats anything he can get his hands on a lot. He's your fat, gluttonous dad. And this is another Matt Groening character as well.
Yeah.
With Bender from Futurama. Now we got Homer from The Simpsons.
He writes
so
them well.
he's got a soft spot for those gluttonous characters. Of course, Homer Simpson is not an avid drug user or a gambler or a sex addict.
Well, he's more, if Bender is like the overindulgent, gives no fucks asshole, but gluttonous in that regard. Homer is definitely like, I mean, he just represents like, or I see sort of a satire or parody of just like dumb sitcom dad.
Mm-hmm.
Sitcom dads, always dumb guys. And so in a way, it's like Homer is a much less egregious offense, but also like, how's he made it this far? Like actually, he's got
No
a wife and
consequence.
kids. Wife and kids.
He's a cartoon character.
That's not fair. I wish
But,
that I could
this-
be consequence free, like Homer Simpson.
I don't know if you would wish that. As previously mentioned.
But it's kind of like he gets away with it all. He's negligent to his children.
Mm-hmm.
He's not always great to his wife Marge.
Right.
He is a complete imbecile when it comes to working at the nuclear power plant. And I get it, dumb guy works at very dangerous job. I know that's the joke. But it's like he gets away with it all. He's completely negligible.
Because he's a lovable scamp.
He is. God damn it, he is.
Also, I did mention that Homer is not a drug addict, but he does kind of teeter on alcoholism. So there's that.
That's fair. He kind of falls
He's a
in
heavy
line with,
drinker
like,
and an eater.
Like the whole like Peter Griffin thing as well. It's like
Right,
cartoon
well, what do you
dad
think Peter
drinks.
Griffin came from? And
Yeah,
so
I mean,
many
no,
other
yeah.
dumb cartoon dads.
Yeah, that's true.
But I mean, like, basically, he's always seen eating a donut, and every time he hears about something good, he's like, tacos,
He does do that.
That's like his
Yeah.
catchphrase is lusting after food. So he's very sinful,
dope.
very gluttonous. Let's move on.
Okay.
Next up, we're talking greed.
Talking greed, baby.
First one that came to mind for me, Mr. Krabs. Eugene Krabs, if you will.
Eugene.
Now, being greedy is basically his entire character, nearly, other than maybe having a daughter. I mean, being greedy is his whole thing. It's his
I
whole
think
shtick.
that Mr. Krabs is a sociopath.
Yeah, he is.
I think that he's incapable of empathizing. And I know that there have been times where he is shown to empathize. Like, for example, SpongeBob, they're afraid that he's eaten the bomb pie. And Mr. Krabs is like, hey, listen, best thing you can do is just give him a nice last day of life. But then also, Mr. Krabs sold SpongeBob's soul for like a nickel, right?
Yes.
Mr. Krabs
Among many other
fired
things.
Squidward, was his hardest working employee, his most loyal employee, for over an alleged theft of a dime. 10 cents we're talking here.
He made them work 24 hours a day to increase profits.
24. He sucks. He's a bad
It's
guy.
safe to say he puts profits and money above all else.
Oh, yeah. What is it?
So-
What compelled you to build a second Krusty Krabs right next to the original? Money.
Exactly. So he, despite being like a core character and kind of like a good guy in the inner circle, he's very villainous. And he's not even the villain
Yeah,
of this show.
I'd agree. I mean,
Like his
honestly, though,
competitor.
different perspective, though, he's just kind of on that Sigma grind set. Like, Partia has to respect it. I mean, brother gets his bands, I'll tell you that much.
That's true. And the Krusty Krab is sometimes shown to be very successful and sometimes shown to be a total dump. I don't know. It teeters back and
Yeah,
forth.
I guess it's whatever the narrative calls for.
But he
But
must be doing something right.
primarily, it's an incredibly successful dining establishment in Bikini Bottom.
Right. So you got to give Mr. Krabs some props for that.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
his
he's a hustler.
cutthroat
Honestly.
drive to reach the top.
Yeah, the more we talk about it, the more I'm kind of enamored. He's kind of my hero now.
Well, let's look to Mr. Burns from The
Yes.
Simpsons. Another Simpsons character, another caricature of greed and capitalism. And
think-
this guy's like Mr. Krabs on a bigger scale.
Yeah, I was about to say I think he's much more upfront in his evilness. Like he plots, he schemes.
He's not just screwing over SpongeBob and Squidward and some of the people in Bikini Bottom.
Yeah.
He's screwing over the world at times.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
know,
Like it's on a much
his
higher
greed.
scale.
His greed is threatening people's lives and the state and stability of the entire planet at points. But
Yes,
he's just like that evil and narcissistic and greedy and puts money above all else.
Yeah, I don't. I can make a bit more of an argument for Mr. Krabs as a hustler. I think he's just like evil. Like he's just like a bad guy, not good.
Absolutely. He definitely falls squarely into the villain category.
I
And
would
I'm
agree.
sure throughout the show there have been attempts to justify this or redeem his character.
Yeah, I mean, there's always an
I think we
episode
could
to
say-
humanize.
I'm sure there is. But in general, he's a big caricature of big business and the evils of capitalism.
That yeah.
So let's talk about somebody who is greedy without the power.
Okay. So I'm glad that we have Frank here because Frank Gallagher, bro. I don't know if you've seen Shameless. I don't think you have. I think that's what you said. But
I'm not. This is your pick.
this man, yeah, this is the one pick I have in this list. This man he has his own own page on the Villains Wiki. And I am going to list to you his list of crimes, all right?
Okay.
Aiding and abetting, armed robbery, arson, assault and battery, bootlegging, breaking and entering, burglary, child abuse, child endangerment, child negligence, conspiracy theory, corpse desecration, drug abuse, drug trafficking, extortion, fraud, gambling, incrimination, impersonation, kidnapping, manslaughter, Munchausen by proxy, physical and psychological abuse, racketeering, stalking, smuggling, statutory rape, sabotage, theft, trespassing, vandalism, and countless other offenses.
Impressive.
This man not once is ever redeemed for any. You keep expecting him. Like something awful will happen. Like the worst shit possible will happen to his family, and you expect for a brief moment him to feel and express the slightest tinge of empathy, and he never does.
Would you say that he is driven by greed in many of these cases?
Absolutely. Only looks out for himself. Only is after gain. Like this guy like fucking sucks. And like it's crazy to make somebody so vehemently awful while also making their character still behave realistically. Like you never see his behavior and you're like, that's not realistic. You're just like, wow,
Right.
this is such a selfish person. Villainous deeds.
Okay, let's move on to maybe a less offensive category,
Okay, we can
but
do
still
that.
still a deadly sin.
All right.
This is sloth or laziness. So probably the king of laziness.
That's
We've
my guy.
got the dude.
That's my guy.
The dude.
No problem with this guy.
The dude abides. From The Big Lebowski. I love this movie. The first time I saw this movie, I did not get it. I was very confused. Second time I saw this movie, it clicked with me. I love this movie. I love the dude. He is the one of the least active or proactive characters in any film ever. Things just happen to him
Things happen
throughout this
around
movie.
him. Everything he says is like something somebody else has already just said to him.
Yeah.
He's so passive in his
Yeah,
behavior. And God, it's to such an incredible extent. I respect the hell out of it.
absolutely. He does nothing but lay around and drink all day, drink White Russians,
And
and
the
just
thing is
allow things to happen around
And the thing
him.
is, it's not even that like he's indulgent. Like it's not he's like an alcoholic, and that's the root of his laziness, right? Like he'll drink like a White Russian, but he won't get wasted. You know,
Right.
he's not
I don't
binge
know that we
drinking.
ever see him drunk in the movie.
Nah, I mean he's just so fucking chill. I can only strive to be a slight percentage of the chillness that he embodies.
He's like permanently on vacation.
Yeah,
Despite being the protagonist and the driving force of this movie, or he's supposed to be. But he just allows things to happen around him. He goes with the flow, and eventually things just work out in the end.
yeah.
And that's a powerful message.
And then John Goodman's character, what's his fucking name? Walter. It's just
Right.
the complete fucking opposite, man.
No chill. So he's a good counter to that character. And that's part of why this movie is so great.
It's fantastic. God, I love the dude.
All right, let's move on to Garfield the cat from the famous comic strip.
It's my guy.
So he's known to sleep all day, as cats do, and hate Mondays, and he's also very gluttonous
Yeah.
and covetous. But we're gonna focus on his laziness for this entry.
Yeah, I think gluttony definitely applies here. But I mean, I think sloth is the much more applicable one. I mean, the
I
dude
think
just
Garfield
likes
could be,
lasagna.
yeah, he could be too lazy to eat. I think.
I think he could. I think
Like
I
he
think if
wouldn't
he
want to
was-
wake up because then he would have to, he'd have to do something. He'd have to put in effort and chew
exactly.
and swallow.
You have to-
That's
you have
hard
to
work.
Get up. You know.
Now, I always thought Garfield kind of got a bad rap because he's a cat. Like it's his nature to be lazy. Like, is it really sinful to just abide by your nature?
Cats sleep like 18 to 20 hours a day, right?
Yeah.
And I have 3 cats. I'm a cat dad, as some would say. I have a baby on board sticker on my car, but it's a picture of a cat, not a baby. That's
Very
actually
good.
that's not true. I lied about that. I don't know why I lied and said that. But I don't fault my cats for sleeping for 20 hours a day. They look cute as fuck doing it. I encourage it. Garfield, as you pointed out, is also of the feline variety.
Yes.
I mean, what are you gonna fucking do? We're
And
getting
he's-
mad at water for being wet now?
Right. He's a house cat. He's got everything prepared for him. It's not his fault that he's lazy. It's in his nature to sleep all day. And why should he get up and hunt? He doesn't have to.
Exactly. And then he just likes lasagna. Like, listen, my cat doesn't eat lasagna, but my cat loves sour cream.
Yeah.
So it's like, listen, if my cat wants to sleep for 10 hours and then get up to have a little lick of sour cream,
He should be able to.
yeah, it's fine by me.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Garfield off the hook for this one because
I'm pretty okay with that. I'm pretty okay with
He's
letting him off
not
the hook.
lazy. That he's a cat.
It's
and
by
that's
nature.
natural.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this, Mel.
Okay.
Why does Garfield hate Mondays? He's unemployed.
Yeah, I guess there's no reason for him to hate
You ever
them.
consider that?
I mean,
Right.
the weekend for an unemployed person is no. I mean, the weekend, the same thing for someone that's unemployed.
Monday is just another day when you're an unemployed house cat.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't. Why would he hate Mondays?
I assume in an attempt to mirror us humans.
He's he's trying to like mimic us to fit in. Like
I mean, he
everyone's
eats
like
lasagna.
"Oh,
He stands
Monday
on 2
blues."
legs. He hates Mondays.
That's true. He is bipedal for some reason.
So, you know what? Now I'm actually kind of defeating my own argument because I said he was a house cat, but now I may be
Yeah.
convinced that he's some kind of chimera.
Yeah. Now I'm not sure. I think you've kind
And
of
his
like
laziness,
also slowly convinced me otherwise.
maybe he is fucking lazy. Okay. let's
Yeah,
move on to
maybe this
another
cat
lazy
just is a piece of
character.
shit. What the fuck?
Yeah, fuck Garfield. Okay.
All right,
Next lazy character.
Scott.
This is Scott Pilgrim from, of course, the movie and the comic book and the game Scott Pilgrim versus the World. He is a lazy, do nothing, no aspirations teenage boy who just wants to do whatever, whenever he feels like it, and just wants things kind of handed to
I'm
him.
pretty sure Scott's actually my age.
Yeah,
I think he's 22 when the comics start.
fair enough.
But here's the thing, though. I'll actually make a bit of a defense for Scott here. Scott is, you're supposed to root for him, but you're not supposed to like love everything he does, right? He's a bit of a nuanced character. However, I haven't read the comic book. I've read all of the comic books, but I haven't read them in a while. I'm pretty sure that like Scott's sort of like general apathy and laziness is due to like Gideon like planting like a virus in his head, like a little virus that makes him lazy and forget shit.
Think so?
I think that's what happens. But
All right, so
also,
maybe he's a victim.
that's the thing is I wouldn't call him entirely a victim. Scott does some shitty stuff, right?
Scott's kind of manipulative.
100%. He's definitely manipulative, but I also wouldn't I wouldn't say he's downright bad.
No,
Maybe,
he's got a lot of growing to do.
yeah.
And I think that's a main theme of the story.
I would agree with that for sure.
But would you agree that Scott can be lackadaisical, lazy,
Oh yeah, 100%.
slothful?
For sure.
You know, but do you feel that as the story progresses, he comes out of that, or does he end the story being just as lazy as ever?
He definitely overcomes to an extent. I think it's one of those things where it's like there's definitely still stuff that he's got to work on and kind of like has some growth and sort of reflection to take care of, but he's on the right path.
Good.
Yeah, I would say
So very
so.
aspirational story there.
Yeah, I would
'Cause
say so.
I remember watching the movie back in high school, and I didn't really care for it because Scott was such an unlikable character.
Yeah, the movie.
But that's kind of the point.
I love the movie, right? However, a movie is, that it's like 2 hours long. The comic books are, multiple volumes. You get much more depth
Yeah.
and nuance to the characters. The movie does a fine job, but the books definitely kind of give you more to Scott as a character.
Yeah, I can certainly understand that. We don't really capture his full depth in the film
Yeah.
because of its length.
Good movie, though.
But we get more of a nuanced Scott who's able to grow more in the comics.
Yeah, takes a while, though.
All right, let's get back into the danger category here.
Is that one of the
With
sins?
wrath.
Danger? Oh, wrath.
I mean, I would say some sins are more dangerous than others to others around you. I mean, if you're slothful, you're probably not hurting other people. If you're wrathful, however,
Yeah.
you're probably murdering people.
Dude,
and
I can
among
see
other things.
4 slides down. Can't fucking
Mm-hmm.
wait to see what sin that character could possibly fit into. I don't even know
Okay.
where you're going with that, but
Well,
we'll
I'll
see.
get there. We'll get there. Don't spoil anything for the audience. First off, we've got Eric Cartman from South Park.
Yeah, evil incarnate.
Probably, yeah, one of the most sinful characters in all of media, I would say. But I chose him for Wrath because, yeah, like Mel said, he's evil incarnate. He's an evil, spiteful, maniacal little boy. He will kill people. He will ruin their lives. He will torment them for the slightest of inconveniences to him. He constantly torments his friends, everyone around him. Nobody likes him. He's abusive and manipulative to his mother and anybody who he can get into his clutches. And yet he's one of the most liked characters in all of media.
Yeah, I think
But still.
I think with characters like Cartman where they're so liked is you kind of have this character that's so egregiously, so over the top, so exaggeratedly bad that it's almost like the sort of offensiveness of the character is dulled a little bit because it's like it's hard to get mad at something that's so comical. Like it's so
Right.
over the top and so overblown that it's kind of hard to be mad at because it's like that's just like silly.
Well, that's just Cartman.
Yeah, I've looked up a list of crimes that Cartman has committed, similar to Frank, because I do think that
Yeah.
uh, I think it provides some expository context here. Hate crimes, mass murder, prostitution, mutilation, falsifying police reports, indecent exposure, harassment, crimes against humanity, vandalism, property damage, enforced cannibalism, regular cannibalism, shoplifting, attempted genocide, terrorism, assault and battery, break-in and injuring, theft, fraud, rape, abuse, incrimination, blackmail, corpse desecration, mass kidnapping, treason, enforced suicide, hijacking, animal cruelty, zoophilia, extortion, stalking, smuggling, underage smoking, arson, attempted bribery, conspiracy, infringement, attempted global domination, attempted matricide, patricide, grave robbing, war crimes, trespassing, embezzlement, underage hit and run, machine operation, false imprisonment, slander.
So compared to Frank Gallagher, Cartman's on a different level. He's committing war crimes and crimes against humanity and trying to dominate the world.
Yeah, hate crimes was the first thing on that list.
Right. And he's even summoned Cthulhu at one point in the show. That's how comically evil he is.
Listen, I watch all of my all of my South Park consumption is in portrait mode with Subway Surfers right next to it, so I can't really say that I'm a big South Park watcher. But
Well,
I've
let me tell you, I'll tell you about Cartman's, probably his most iconic crime
yeah, please educate me.
is there was an older boy in the neighborhood who
Okay.
bullied him a bit, tormented him a little bit. Pretty mild stuff, kind of run-of-the-mill older kid
Yeah,
bullying a
yeah,
younger
that's
kid.
just what kids do.
So
Boys being
Cartman
boys.
reacts. Yeah, boys being boys. Cartman lashes out and reacts way over the top with a diabolical plan, which involves tricking somebody else into murdering this boy's parents. And then he steals the bodies from the morgue, dismembers them, and cooks them into a chili. Then he convinces this boy to eat the chili. And during eating this chili, he pulls out a finger with a ring on it. And he recognizes it as his mother's finger. And he realized that he's just eaten chili made of his own parents. So Cartman runs over and licks up his tears, literally, and remarks about how sweet his despair is. And
That's pretty fucked up.
that is Cartman's terrible, awful, horrible, notorious crime.
I know that
So that's just one of many.
you just yeah, that was just like one episode. I know that people kind of hail Trey Parker and Matt Stone as sort of these kings of satirization, which I'm not denying is true. That's just like not good. That's just like bad. I don't know how you.
I mean, the joke is that it's so bad, but people see this
Cartman-
as a turning point for Cartman, where he goes from just like a bratty, spoiled kid to
to
like
just, to
evil.
just bad evil. I mean, god damn, that's pretty rough.
And then going forward, if there is a bad take that needs to be taken in the show, Cartman will take it.
I think that's
And
valid.
that,
He's kind of like a
that is his
scapegoat.
character, and that's why he's in the show. And every once in a while, he gets his comeuppance. He does.
Okay.
So
That's
he's
fair.
not like glorified, and he's an asshole, and nobody likes him, and people pity him.
I do know
but
that.
I don't think, right? He's not exactly propped up as a good character.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to a more complex, wrathful character.
Okay.
So this is Kratos from the God of War series, and so this is Kratos from the reboot. So he's much more complex in the reboot. But the original 3 games, or there's some side games as well, but in the original core 3 games, Kratos is a younger man. He's been scorned by the gods and tricked into murdering his own family, and he is wrathful. He wants revenge, and he will rip and tear and murder anything that stands in his way. So the whole game, he is screaming and yelling and ripping and stabbing and killing every single thing, and constantly this man has zero chill. Until we
Okay.
move into the reboot, where he's calmed down. It's years later. He grows a beard. He has a son, and he has a new wife who has passed away. And he is a somber character until his rage is awoken again.
Oh wow. I guess old habits die hard.
Absolutely.
I have not played any of the God of War games. But I feel like that sort of vindictive anger feels kind of like justified. Like if the gods tricked him into killing his own family, I don't think I'd be too happy about that. I think I'd be a little
He
upset.
goes too far, though.
He goes too far in his
There's too
in
much
his
collateral
vindictive
damage.
pursuit. Too
Yes.
much collateral damage. Okay. Um Here, I know that his character in the new one is significantly more nuanced. Like you said, he grew a beard. You don't
Right.
do that unless you've done some sort of internal growth as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Is he? I know you play as him.
Yes.
Is he like a? Is he bad? Like, is he kind of like a bad guy?
He's more like, I had a troubled past. I did things in my past that I regret and I now have to atone for.
Okay, I mean,
And
I think that's
he's
fair.
suppressing that so hard in the later games until it's drawn out again, and he needs to tap into that rage of his old self to
Oh, okay.
overcome and protect his family.
He's got to like go back to his old ways, like reluctantly.
I mean, literally, there's a scene where, in the new games he has a new weapon, different from what he used in the past. But there's a
Okay.
scene later in the game where he goes back to his house and he digs under the floorboards and he pulls out his Blaze of Chaos, the weapons from the original game, and he embraces his old self.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful series. I love this game and I love this character, but he is fucking angry and he is a killer and
Damn.
he's wrathful and that's why he's here. But he's complicated. He's not
Okay.
evil. I would say
That's that's fair.
he has a big redemption arc, and that is kind of
Well,
the
that's
plot
nice. That's what fatherhood
of
does to you.
the later series. Yes,
That's what having
and
fatherhood and a dead wife does to you.
he wants to shape his son into not falling down the same path as him.
That's fair. I
So
probably would too.
he's a complex, nuanced, wrathful character, but some might say in the later games he is the hero and he does things for good.
That's okay.
So, wrath is not always
King
bad. In the next case, in this character, and I could probably give you 100 guesses, and based on this picture, you'd probably never guess who it was. And I don't know if you're even going to be familiar with this character, but this is Am, or the Allied Master Computer.
I have no mouth, but I must scream. I've played the video game,
That's right.
and I've read the
So
short
in
story.
the novel or the game, Am is a supercomputer who
Yeah.
has taken over the entire planet and killed all of humanity except for, I don't know, 5 or 6 people. Mm-hmm. And Am despises humanity with every fiber of its being, so much so that it kept these 5 or 6 people alive and made them invulnerable just so it could torture them for all of eternity.
Yes.
And early in the story, Am goes on a whole mantra of, my body or my form has covered the entire earth. And if I could write hate into every nano cell of every fiber of my being, it would still not be enough to quite say how much I hate humanity.
Okay, not to sound like a basic bitch, but this is one of my favorite short stories. I have read it a lot. I have read it quite a few times. I really, really do love it. So Am is one of my favorite villains, but not so. I think that with characters like Am is at first glance this sort of omnipotent global being, he was essentially a god at this point. I mean, relative to the 5 people he's held captive, he's essentially a god. Mm-hmm. But the big thing about Am is that he's kind of like insecure in a way. He's kind of a bitch, right? Like he
Yeah.
has this great disdain for humanity, and he truly honestly believes that his disdain for humanity is entirely justified due to the 3 computers combined into one. They were all going to set off nukes and shit. He curses humanity for his own creation, for his purpose, and he wipes them all out. But what the fuck does torturing these 5 people have anything to do with his conception, creation, and later sentience?
I
he's
think,
just taking out his anger. I mean, sure, he knows everything and
yeah,
is omnipotent God, but he's insecure, and that's why I love him so much.
I think Am just wants to feel something and is trying through tormenting his creators to feel something
Well,
because, well, he can't. He is a machine and he recognizes that humans have the one thing that he does not, and that is, the ability to feel and to,
yeah.
be human and have that human element that a machine can never have. And that's why Am is so spiteful and hateful and wrathful to
See,
these survivors.
I like I another reason that I like Am and why I think that Am is a really great example of a wrathful character is because Am's anger is so like unadulterated and so simple. You know, there's no nuance to Am. There's not like a
Hmm.
soft side to Am.
Right.
It is just pure fucking anger, and I love it. Have you played the video game?
I'm not.
It's a point and click from 1999 if that tells you anything. However, it's pretty fucking good. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Well, I've read the story quite a few times, and we could probably do a whole episode about that, just the themes of that story.
Probably actually, yeah.
So let's not go too deep into it. Just know that I think Am is like at the top of the wrath list.
I think that personality paired with actions, it's pretty hard to beat Am.
I mean, even Eric Cartman doesn't hold a candle to Am, I feel.
Well, not even close. Eric Cartman had attempted genocide. Am had successful genocide.
That's true. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. And I think this is the character you're referring to,
Yeah,
to
I
not
was.
knowing
So is
what
this
sin they represent.
pride?
This is actually envy.
Oh shit. Okay, yeah, makes sense.
So this is Woody from Toy Story, and Woody, oh gosh, God, I could go on. This movie is super allegorical because,
Okay.
first of all, it's the first 3D animated full-length feature, which so Woody kind of symbolizes the death of the old and the new medium rising up in its place. And it's very fitting that he's a cowboy because the cowboys died out because they didn't keep up with the times and they were just overtaken by
Yeah,
modern
fucking
society.
lame ass toys aren't fucking nothing but spaceman toys.
So, right. And, when
Fucking
the
a
spaceman
cowboy.
toys come along, the cowboys are no longer cool anymore. So, Woody is Andy's favorite toy for the longest time until Andy gets Buzz Lightyear, the spaceman toy. And he thinks it's the coolest shit ever. And Woody fears that Andy's not going to want anything to do with him anymore. So, he is envious of Buzz's place in Andy's heart.
Yes. Here's the
And,
thing about
throughout. Yes.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, the thing about it is, he is an envious hero because he takes his initial envious position from initially meeting Buzz and eventually grows to a friendship and they learn to work together and he overcomes it. So he falls into the hero category, but he very much embraces that envious sin.
I think that envy is probably the most in some context is probably the most forgivable of the sins, I would say. Like I said, in sort of like this disparaged situation, and you see somebody that on the surface at least is kind of living a life that has certain qualities and characteristics of of solutions to the problems that you have. I understand being envious of that. You know what I mean? Like money problems, envious of somebody that doesn't have money problems. I get that. I think that out of all of the sins, this is kind of like the least egregious to me.
I could agree. I think in Woody's case, though, it's okay if he's envious, but he doesn't even give Buzz a chance to kind of come around.
yeah.
And he knocks the man out of a window.
I think Woody's kind of ties into pride too. Like he's like his ego is bruised.
Right, because he used to be the favorite.
Yeah.
So he just immediately decides Buzz is a problem. Andy's never going to suddenly get bored of him and come back to me. He just assumes all these things and immediately takes
is
it out
true.
on Buzz. And He tries to get him killed, basically.
Yeah, that is true. He does try to kind of fucking kill him. Actually,
Like,
you're
he could have
right.
just waited it out, and maybe in a week, Andy would have been like, "I'm bored with this toy. Let me go back to Woody."
Yeah,
You
but
know,
no,
he
he
doesn't.
couldn't even do
He
that.
doesn't trust Andy
It
enough
was
to
like
come
it
around
was
to
like
his
an hour.
favorite. That's a long
Wasted
time
no
in toy time, though.
I guess so.
We've got another Disney character here, and this is definitely more of a villain and kind of a sympathetic villain. This is Syndrome from The Incredibles. So
Another one of
this
my favorite
character,
villains.
yes, and a lot of Disney villains are driven by envy. I had a hard time narrowing it down. But I thought Syndrome was very interesting because as a kid, he admires Mr. Incredible. He wants to be a sidekick, and he is shunned by Mr. Incredible. And he feels that Mr. Incredible is living the life he wants. He has superpowers. He's a hero. He's beloved.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting because his Syndrome's plan is not to take away from. Oh, let me rephrase that. Syndrome has an interesting plan because he wants to sell superpowers to people.
Yes.
Because his famous line is, if everybody's super, then nobody is.
Yes.
He wants to put everybody on an even playing field with Mr. Incredible and all the other supers to kind of invalidate what they have.
Yeah.
Because he feels like I couldn't be born with these powers like you. So I had to make my own. And I'm going to take my created powers and give them to everyone. And
Yeah.
take away your pillar that you see yourself on and that I used to see you on.
See, that is kind of like an understandable cause, right? Like I get the perspective on that, right? Like I was rejected by my hero who was a superhero, and I think that superheroes kind of have this sort of idealized position in society, and I think that we should put humans and then superhumans on an equal playing field. I get that to an extent. That's kind of like the culminating point to Tokyo Ghoul is like this group of people wants to turn everybody into ghouls, to sort of get rid of that divide between humans and ghouls. But Syndrome also systematically kills off like every superhero.
Yes.
Like, and then is like, now that I have used my robot that I have improved every time to kill every superhero, I will now fight it and be the hero of the day. So
Right.
even if he is in the pursuit of leveling the playing field, it's a disingenuous and superficial goal, because really he just wants to be the hero. He wants to be idolized. He is jealous he never had that.
Right.
So his whole like equal playing field thing is kind of bullshit in a way.
Maybe so. Yeah, that might just be his facade for his own superiority complex. But I think
And then
we
he
can
gets-
both agree he's very envious. His
Very,
whole
for sure.
villainous plot is driven by his jealousy of what Mr. Incredible has.
I would agree.
Next up, we've got Gollum, or Schmeagol, from Lord of the Rings. I picked the terrible,
from the
awful
video
game
game?
version.
Yeah.
I could have picked a good one, Andy Serkis or something, but you get to look at this instead. Gollum, he is entranced by the ring, and it's his precious, and he lives in a cave just idolizing his ring all day, and it's his whole life and everything, and eventually he no longer has possession of it. And of course he's envious of whoever has it, and he's covetous, and he wants his precious. That's his driving force. And eventually he becomes the hero when somebody else becomes covetous of the ring, Frodo.
Yeah.
He intervenes and sacrifices himself to destroy the ring because he feels like this is my purpose, to die with my precious. So it's hard to think of a more covetous or envious character.
Yeah, he kind of redeems himself in a way. Or
He does.
Maybe it's. Here's the thing, though. Is it even redemption though? Like, I get that he saves the day, but like, is that truly redemption from his covetous behavior if because isn't that sort of like the ultimate attachment to that?
I mean, maybe so, but it was useful for the greater good.
That is true for
Just
sure.
him being covetous. And it's not entirely his fault because, the ring has powers over people.
Yeah.
And, even good, loyal people like Frodo can be swayed by the ring's influence. And others in the series we see are swayed by it. So he's kind of a victim of the ring's power. And it's just poetic the way that he dies with his precious
I would agree.
and ends up saving the day. So
Rest in
yeah, it's
peace.
kind of a beautiful envy there.
Kind of, yeah. There is beauty to it. It's a Shakespearean tragedy.
It is. That's why it's such an iconic story. Moving on, let's talk about something that's
my
not
guy.
beautiful.
It's my guy.
This should not be your guy.
He's just
definitely.
like me.
There are too many. Yeah, there's too many people out there who look up to this guy like he's
This
a role model or
Is
he's
the
a good guy.
Sigma grind set.
This
see no
is
problem.
Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. This is from the film, who I think most people are familiar with. Wow, this is Pride. So, Patrick Bateman is self-obsessed. Incredibly, he just loves himself. His appearance is always top priority. He has a crazy long skincare routine, workout routine, and he buys top of the line suits. His apartment is pristine. He pretends to listen to all the new hip music because his appearance is very important to him.
Yes.
There's an entire scene about his business card and how
I
he
love
compares
that
it
scene.
to others around him. And he's just one of the most self-absorbed, horrible characters. Totally sociopathic, psychopathic. He views himself on a different level from other people. That's how prideful he is.
Yeah, well, the thing about Bateman is that he's sociopathic, but not in the way that he's psychopathic, but not in the way that he wants to be. Like, Bateman so desperately wants to be like the new up and coming, like slick, wry killer of his generation. But so at the end of the, I love this movie, by the way. At the end of the movie, when he gets on the phone and he calls his lawyer and he confesses to everything after this, this maybe not real shootout with the cops and this pursuit and this chase. And, he has that line where he goes, I guess I'm kind of a sick guy. That can be interpreted one of two ways. One, I'm sick in the head. I'm a sick, fucked up, twisted guy. But also, it could also be like, sort of the more colloquial use of the word sick, as in like cool, like sick. Like I'm pretty sick guy. You know what I mean?
Was that a term in the 80s?
I think that it was a term. I think that it was a term in the 80s. I think it fit right up there with like fucking radical. I don't know. But if it was a term in the 80s, then yeah, I think that he kind of like wants, and he is mentally fucked up, but he kind of wants to fit this image of what he thinks being a psychopath is. And like that's the ultimate like pride, because it's just like he's so wrapped up in himself that he cannot see anything other than his beliefs to be the outcome.
Mm-hmm. Do you believe
He's
that's
just like me for real.
That's the root of his delusion? Is that he's so wrapped up in his own little fantasy world?
Yes, he has no
Of-
understanding of just like really like how the world works. I like it's interesting because he knows how the world works. He's successful in his job, but his job is also just kind of a bunch of bullshit.
Well, it's fitting that he's like a yuppie businessman.
100%.
That's where sociopaths succeed.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is most sociopaths are not dangerous like at all.
Mm-hmm, right.
Actually, I can't remember
There are
who said this, but in fact, a sociopath is most likely going to be the most law-abiding, rule-following, middle-of-the-road citizen in society.
right.
So that just goes kind of like further to show that like Bateman is kind of acting out of this image that he has created for himself.
And we see plenty of other law-abiding sociopaths as the characters around him.
Yeah, the fucking people he works with are also
Uh-huh.
ridiculous.
And there's like an iconic scene in that movie where he's having a threesome, and he's filming it at the time, and the entire time he's looking at himself in the mirror.
That's the big one. I don't know. It's a great scene because where it is incredibly on the nose, it does pretty perfectly illustrate, the downfall of his character.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we could definitely dive into Bateman. Let's move on to another super nuanced, prideful character. This is Walter White, a.k.a. Heisenberg, a.k.a. Yo, Mr. White, a.k.a. Underpants RV Meth Cooker Man. So this is, of course, the main character of Breaking Bad. Have you seen Breaking Bad?
Not all of it, but I'm familiar enough with the character.
All right, so Mr. White, Walter, is a science teacher at, 50 years old. He feels like he's been scorned by his former colleagues, and he could have been so much more if the world just wasn't so cruel to him.
Yeah.
Because he's
Down on
such
his
a
luck.
smart guy, and he's just the best at everything, and he doesn't need anybody's help. He's so great, and he's going to show the world now. Okay, I'm done with that voice. He wants to be a meth cook, and he wants to be the best goddamn meth cook in all of New Mexico, just to show his fucking rival how cool he is. And he just wants to be the best for the sake of being the best, and he masks it as I'm making money for my family. So when I die of cancer,
Exactly.
they've got a nest egg. But he doesn't give a shit about that. It's all about his own pride. And as the show progresses, we watch his pride become his downfall in many, many cases.
Yeah, I mean, you phrased it pretty perfectly. It's like he just kind of like has these thinly veiled lies he tells to himself. Oh, I'm doing this for my family. No, you're not. You
And
suck,
he really is.
man.
He's convincing himself, too.
Yeah, he really is convincing himself, and he's justifying his actions as, bad deeds for a good reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, come on, bud. Mm-mm.
There's a
It's like
pivotal
also like
point.
somebody offered to like give you money. By the way,
Exactly. His former colleague offers to pay for his treatment.
yeah,
That
like
resolves
what?
the
That's
show.
just pride.
The show is over.
This show
You
doesn't
take
even
that
happen.
money. Yeah.
The show doesn't even fucking happen.
Just swallow your pride and take the money. Your family does
Walter-
not have to suffer. People do not have to die.
Walter is just another one of those characters that people, idolize or think is cool or whatever. And like the whole point is like he has this fatal flaw to his character.
Good characters do.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the cancer's not even what fucking kills him.
Right.
So it's like,
And you would think that being a drug lord that he's very greedy.
yeah.
But actually, he's kind of like the Joker in the way he doesn't care about the money.
Yeah.
He
But
does it just for the rush of it. And
Yeah.
just because he can show the world that he can and he can be the best.
He's an incredibly well-written character, to be fair. He's
so good.
Written amazingly. I love his character, but I do think that sometimes maybe the writing of his character, to no fault of the writers, is misinterpreted a little bit sometimes.
Right. And he's constantly riding the line of anti-hero, villain,
Yeah.
redemption arc kind of thing. I mean, everybody loves complex characters or characters with their big fatal flaw.
Me too.
And-
I'm everyone.
And Walter White, he fits that perfectly. Let's talk about a prideful protagonist or a hero. Naruto Uzumaki. He's a little ninja boy. And he thinks that he is hot shit. He doesn't know shit yet. He's a kid. He
Dude,
has no training.
To be fair,
But-
he literally just like wasn't raised by anybody. Like his dad was like went to the third Hokage and was like, "Watch after my son. I'm gonna die." And the third Hokage was like, okay, and then just like left like a child in this just like fucking apartment and was like, yeah, good luck developing and
He's like
getting social skills.
he's the equivalent of like a kid walking into the 4th grade and being like, I'm gonna be president.
Yeah, but
And none of
like,
you motherfuckers are gonna stop me.
I just can't. I don't blame him, man. He felt the need to prove himself because the entire village hated him for one, an immutable trait he had no control over, and two, like just being a kid. Naruto, annoying as shit. But I get it. He's troubled. He's a troubled
Right.
kid.
But he has drive. But it's driven by his
It's about
pride,
drive,
though.
It's about power. We stay hungry. We devour.
Like
put in
he-
the work, put in the hours and take. What's that? Sorry. Continue.
He uses his prideful nature to propel himself and to keep motivated, and he never gives up because he knows that he can overcome whatever obstacles in front of him.
Yes.
Because he's fucking Naruto.
He has
Right?
unwavering resolve.
Exactly. But he's also prideful. He walks in the room and says, I've got the biggest dick in the room. Nobody can tell me otherwise.
That is true. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, he is an annoying little shit. Like, for the main 220 episodes of the first series, like most of the time he is just like unbearable. But I do think that, like, in a way his pride maybe not justified, but like it's understandable given his upbringing, given, I mean, Kakashi gets it. Kakashi's like, hey, Sasuke, don't be so hard on the kid. He's literally had a fucking awful life. Like, yeah, your entire clan is dead, but like he also doesn't have anybody.
Right.
I get
This
it.
is just an example of somebody using what's usually perceived as a negative trait or something that will
Yeah.
lead to your downfall, and he uses that as his main motivation. And it definitely comes back to bite his ass many times.
Oh yeah, for sure. But they also just hate a quirked up white boy good with the sauce. And as one myself, I kind of get it.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay, those are all of our characters. We've made it through all of the sins, all 7 sins, but I've
Nice.
got a little bonus feature at the end here.
Cool.
This is the popular theory that the SpongeBob SquarePants characters represent the 7 deadly sins. And you'll see I've pulled up 2 different images here because
Yeah, two different
people cannot
interpretations.
seem to agree who represents what sin.
You know why I think they can't seem to agree?
Why is that, Mel?
Because it doesn't make any fucking sense. I mean, I think that for a lot of these like labels, I think they're kind of just being selective with their behavior. Like Gary being gluttony doesn't really make much sense at all. Like, there's a couple episodes where Gary like eats a lot, but I also think that that's just kind of being selective. Like, how the fuck is SpongeBob lust? Like,
Apparently because he has a lust for life. Or just everything. Right? Because they can't seem to agree. Like, is Pearl lust? Pearl, who's hardly featured in the show, because she likes boys?
but the thing
Therefore,
is
she's lust?
But the thing is like she has like her teenage heartthrobs, but Pearl also like kind of fits greed as well. Mr. Krabs buys her all this shit that she wants. Like, she's kind of like a reflection of his greed.
Right.
I think
And then
that
this
Mr.
first-
Krabs' greed and Patrick as Sloth make total sense. Everyone, I mean, envy is plankton, yeah, but like I think when it comes to wrath, lust, and pride, it's kind of like and gluttony, it's like it can go either way.
They're stretching it, right, to fit this kind of narrative. And that's the problem with these cartoon conspiracy theories, which we might do a full episode on in the future. I'm very excited to do that.
I would not mind that at all.
But I just wanted to touch on this one because I thought it was dumb.
Here.
It's like you can take most shows, because all these characters are very just like, here's the stupid one,
Yeah,
and
I
here's
mean, like
the greedy one.
you can force a narrative, if you try hard enough. But at some point, you have to realize that you're kind of trying to fit a square peg through a round hole.
A square pants peg through a round hole.
Hey, I'd high five you if this was in person.
And on that note, this has been the most sinful characters. My name's Carl.
My name is
You've
Mel.
been Mel.
I've been Mel. I will
This
continue
has
to
been.
be.
Next episode, he's still gonna be Mel.
Yeah. Well, probably.
This has been the long couch. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
And we'll see
Bye.
you on the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.